Okay, let's talk about strategy. It's supposed to be the key, right? The thing that unlocks success for literally everyone, from giant companies to tiny nonprofits. But let's be honest, so much of what gets called strategy just feels, well, bad. Today we're going to dig into why that is. Why are we just swimming in bad strategy? And more importantly, how can you learn to spot it a mile away?
I mean, you've been in that meeting, right? Richard Rumelt paints this perfect picture of a so-called strategy retreat. You've got the slick movie, the CEO's big speech with all this dramatic music. They even release a bunch of colorful balloons. It has all the show, all the pizzazz, everything except an actual strategy. It's just pure style and absolutely zero substance.
And that really gets to the heart of the mystery, doesn't it? Why is this thing that we all agree is so critical done so badly so often? It's a huge puzzle. So let's start to unravel it together. All right, here's what we're going to cover. We'll look at the trap of no choice, this idea of strategy by template, and the positive thinking fallacy. And then we'll get into how you can spot the bad stuff. First up, the trap of no choice. This is a big one. You know, committees are great at creating compromises, but they're terrible at creating strategies. Because at its core, strategy is about making a hard choice. It's about deciding what you're not going to do, and that's where things so often fall apart. So, to see this in action, let's look at a classic example. Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC. Back in the early 90s, DEC was a huge deal in the computer world. But they were facing this massive challenge from the rise of personal computers. They were at a critical crossroads and had to pick one single path forward if they wanted to survive. And this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. You had this political deadlock among the top executives. So you have Alec, who wants to focus on building boxes, the hardware. You've got Beverly, who's pushing for solutions, custom services. And then Craig wants to go all in on making chips. Now look at their second and third choices. It created this impossible situation where no two of them could form a stable majority. The third person could always peel one of them away with a better offer. They were just stuck, completely paralyzed. They literally could not make a choice.
So what was the result of all this? Well, because they couldn't choose, they had to compromise. And what they came up with was this totally meaningless statement. DEC is committed to providing high-quality products and services and being a leader in data processing. I mean, what does that even mean? Who isn't committed to high-quality products? It says nothing. It's not a strategy, it's a surrender. It's a political document that doomed the company because it refused to focus on anything.
All right, on to our second big problem, strategy by template. I have a feeling this one is going to feel very familiar to a lot of you. It's that illusion of making progress just by filling in a bunch of blanks.
You know the drill. It's always the same 4 steps. Step 1, come up with a super lofty vision that sounds amazing. Step 2, write a politically correct mission statement. Step 3, list a bunch of feel-good values that nobody could possibly argue with, like integrity or teamwork. And the final step, just list your goals and poof, call them strategies. It creates this document that looks strategic, but it's a complete sham. It's a way to avoid all the tough thinking about how you're actually going to win.
And here's a perfect real-world example. At one point, Dow Chemical's vision was to become the most profitable and respected science-based chemical company in the world. I mean, it sounds great, right? Who wouldn't want that? But as a strategy, it's completely useless. It tells you nothing about how to actually get there, how to be competitors, or what tough choices to make. It's not a plan. It's just a nice-sounding wish.
And that's really the key takeaway here. These fill-in-the-blank exercises are just bureaucratic shortcuts. They're for organizations that want to create the appearance of having a strategy without doing any of the actual difficult work. Richard Rumelt has this great phrase for it. He calls it charisma in a can. It's this idea that you can just bottle up what makes a great leader and put it into a template. But of course, it just doesn't work that way.
Okay, that brings us to our third and final reason for bad strategy, the positive thinking fallacy. This one is really subtle and dangerous because on the surface it sounds so good. It's this belief that motivation and a positive attitude can substitute for actual competence and a solid plan.
You hear this mindset everywhere, especially in business. Think of quotes like this one from Jack Welch about reaching for the impossible. This thinking has deep roots. It comes from a movement called New Thought, which basically says that your mental state creates your reality. If you just believe hard enough, you can make it happen. And hey, if that's true, why would you even need a strategy, right? You just need to want it more.
But this is where that kind of thinking leads. And the contrast is, well, it's chilling. On one hand, you have the inspiring belief, just one last push. And on the other, you have the brutal reality, the Battle of Passchendaele in World War I.
For months, leaders demanded one last push from their troops, who were incredibly motivated. The result? 70,000 Allied soldiers died to gain just 5 miles of muddy ground. It's a horrifying example of what happens when willpower is not guided by a competent strategy.
Think about that. Those soldiers didn't have a motivation problem. They had a leadership problem. They suffered from a complete lack of competent strategy. And this is so crucial. A leader's job isn't just to be a cheerleader asking for more effort. Their job is to create a plan that is worthy of that effort.
So we've walked through the 3 big traps that lead to bad strategy. The question now is, what do you do with this information? Let's talk about how to spot the bad stuff out in the real world. Here's your new toolkit.
Okay, so there are 3 giant red flags to look for. First, the absence of choice. If a strategy tries to please everyone and avoid making any tough calls, it's not a strategy. Second, look for fluff and buzzwords. You know, that impressive-sounding language that's just masking a total lack of substance. And third, watch out for goals being mistaken for strategy. A list of things you want to happen is a wish list, not a plan.
So now you know the signs. You know what to look for. The next time someone puts a strategy document in front of you, at a town hall, in a board meeting, wherever, you have the tools to really look at it, to ask the hard questions. So what will you look for?